What does gutsy mean to you?
Means unapologetically owning who you are and just going for it. Just do it.
Welcome to the Gutsy Podcast, the show where you learn how to own what you actually want and shift the mind junk that's been holding you back. I'm Laura Ora, keynote speaker, coach, and your guide to help you get clarity, build confidence, and make the gutsy moves that change your life. Each week, I'm going to help you simplify things by teaching you how to get out of your head while stepping into action. This way you can achieve all those life shifts that you've been overthinking. Your desire, that drives you. But gutsy, that's what gets it done. When you think of leadership, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Guiding and supporting others. Exactly. But have you ever thought about how you're leading yourself? Today's guest said it best. The hardest but most important person you'll ever lead is yourself. Things like setting boundaries, getting clear about your personal values, and rewiring the habit of hustle are all at the foundation of leading yourself with confidence. And they're the things that ultimately lead you to the peace and fulfillment that you are looking for in and out of the office. Today's guest is all about helping leaders to grow from the inside out. Gabrielle Espinosa is the founder of Self Leader Consulting, LLC, specializing in leadership development that drives real, lasting change. She partners with HR and talent leaders to create high-impact programs that build self-awareness, empathy, and self-management, essential skills for today's leaders. With a background in sales and leadership, she knows firsthand how self-leadership can improve performance and prevent burnout, something she's personally overcome. Now, she's on a mission to help leaders thrive without sacrificing well-being and expand their impact globally. Before we dig into that, one of the things that all leaders do is they invest in themselves. I mean, heck, you're doing it right now by choosing to listen to this episode, whether you're on your commute, taking a walk, you're on the treadmill, or you're figuring out the meal plan for this week again. Great leaders know that to have the impact that they want to have in the people around them, they first have to have that impact within. Things like learning how to overcome overthinking, build your confidence to truly be yourself in all situations, and ultimately to take action. No more hesitating. We are getting in there and we're getting it done. One of the ways that I love to support leaders is inside the Gutsy Collective. This is a community for women that are ready to take the next step in their life or career. And honestly, they're craving support. They're looking for accountability, and they are building their tools in their toolkit. Leadership isolation is a real ass thing. And whether you're learning to lead yourself or you're leading a team of 5, 10, or 50, the Gutsy Collective helps you make the gutsy moves that change your life. Sign up for a free 14-day trial at lauraora.com. All right, my friend, I can't wait to dive into Gabrielle's story and her insights, so let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the Gutsy Podcast, Gabrielle.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Yes, likewise. So love that we're going down this path of self-leadership, because to lead others, we got to be willing to handle our own shit, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We've got to be willing to lead ourselves. So I know behind every great story is a story. So tell me, what has your journey been like to get to this point? What's going on in your world? What's led you to where we are right now?
Oh gosh, I mean, how long do we have? Um, gosh, well, it's a fantastic question. But when I really think about it in the context of self-leadership, there was a time in my 20s that really comes to mind, and it's really helped put me on this path and doing the type of work that I do. And so when I was in my 20s, I fell into that hustle trap. I always felt like I needed to be achieving the next milestone. I got to make more money. I got to get the next promotion. I have to make myself visible, because if I'm not visible, if I'm not getting the recognition, then I won't be, seen. And so I spent so much time achieving that I lost track of who I was and and what it was I actually wanted in my life. And because of that, I burned out. I mean, I'm sure many people can relate to that, but my burnout was particularly bad. Yeah, I was in a very dark place, medication, weight gain, not getting out of bed. It was a very dark and difficult time. And it wasn't until somebody told me, you're not going to be good for anybody else unless you're good for yourself. And that was game changing for me because it really made me realize that how I show up matters. The way that I choose to lead my life will have an impact not only on my team and the people that I was leading at the time, but also on the community, also for myself and making myself proud first and foremost. And so that was when I truly learned that the hardest but most important person that you're ever going to lead in your life is you. And so I've spent the past 5 years on this journey of being very intentional about how I lead my life and making sure that I'm staying aligned with my values and using that as a compass so that not only am I living my life on my terms, but I'm also modeling that for other people and really trying to educate them around the fact that success is not on the other side of burnout. And the way that you avoid that is by putting yourself first, which is really hard, especially for women.
Yeah, I resonate so deeply with what you're sharing. And I know that our listener right now does as well, because it's a slippery slope, right? You don't really realize it's happening, but every day it's kind of being chipped away at. You are being chipped away at.
Yes.
Your desires, your passions, your drive, your everything, your whole self
Yeah.
is just kind of slowly being chipped away at. And then all of a sudden you realize that, hey, I'm in bed. I can't get out. I've gained weight.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing and I have no drive to do anything about it.
Yep. Yep. And I mean the analogy that I used was I was like I'm rotting. Like when you even think about that word you're like, "Oh, like we've seen like rotting food in the fridge." Not that I've done that, but yes, things have been in there for longer than they should have, but that's literally how I felt that I was just decaying because I wasn't doing the type of work or I wasn't surrounding myself with the right people or energy that was meant for me. And when you get used to that and you're living in that, it's really hard to see it. And so that was why it was so important, having good people in my life to be honest with me and say, hey, like you need to take care of yourself because this is hard not only for us to watch, but also we know what you're capable of. And that was when I really just sensed that responsibility. Each of us is a leader because to lead is to influence. And so all of us have the ability to influence others by the way that we show up. And so I started to take that as a responsibility. And that's really helped when, I'm having a bad day or when things aren't going necessarily how I wanted to, taking a step back and thinking about how can I make this work for me and not to me, and just being very intentional on that path forward.
It's so self-aware, right? It's just
Yeah.
tapping into self-awareness. I'm kind of curious, how did you start to get yourself out of that place? Because I know that that's always the next question. It's like, okay, I acknowledge that I don't want to feel like this anymore,
Yeah.
but I don't even know where to begin. It's too heavy, it's too much. So what did you do and what do you recommend?
Yeah. And gosh, and if anyone who's in that position right now, it's really hard to start getting yourself out of that. And there's a couple of things that I did. And so, please choose what's best for you on your journey. But what made it very easy for me to start to begin was I told myself, what's just one thing that I can add to my life to make me start feeling better? And then what's one thing that I can remove? And these weren't big things. So when I first started on this journey, the one thing I decided to take away was soda. I was drinking like 2 or 3 sodas a day. And I decided, okay, I'm not going to drink soda anymore. Like that is not who I am. I'm going to drink water, still have my coffee, teas, but I'm not going to drink soda anymore. And so that was what I removed. And then another piece of, what do I add? It was a walk. I'm going to walk just 30 minutes a day. And so by doing that consistently for several weeks, I started to feel better. I started to have more energy. And then it was, okay, what's another thing that I can add and what's something else I can take away? Oh, this is a recurring invite that is not valuable. I do not need to be on this meeting. So I'm going to remove it. Then, okay, I'm going to get a gym membership. I'm going to start lifting some weights and get my strength back. And eventually it became a lifestyle. I started building habits for my health, for my mind. And throughout that entire process of really changing my habits, I was also working with a therapist. And that was mind blowing because there was so much that I didn't realize I was holding on to. And going through and having somebody, guide me through that journey was imperative to really start to gain control of, my life, and then getting clear on what it is that I value and making sure that the decisions that I started to make were in alignment with those.
Oh, that's beautiful. First, I love the simplicity of the approach that you took because I think sometimes we're like, we have to do it all or nothing at all.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
yeah.
especially high functioning women, especially oldest daughters, people that have been in charge of things for a long
Hmm.
time. We're like, we got to do all the things, right? We're going to have a big grand plan. We got to buy all the things and we got to do all the things. And then when we don't do those things, then we suck again.
Yep.
So, what's amazing about your approach is that it's so simple. Like I always tell my clients and the women inside the Gutsy Collective, let it be easy.
Yes, and I love that.
Let it be easy. And by simply taking one thing away and adding one thing in, you're letting it be easy and you're
Yeah.
showing yourself. You have to regain capacity for these
Hmm.
things, right? You've gotten used to things being a certain way. So I think that that's just brilliant and really like, just very encouraging to
Yeah.
remind people that like, hey, it doesn't have to be this whole last thing. Like we can break it down.
We can take baby steps, and absolutely, because there were so many times that, before I really started to, break it into chunks, like I was like, all right, I got the gym membership and bought a meal plan and was like, I'm doing all the things, and it went nowhere. Like
Yep,
the
exactly.
gym membership, I went like maybe 3 times and was like, well, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing after, 4 months to go back and say, oh, I'm canceling. You saw me 3 times, but here we are. And so really making it easy to your point and just picking, those two things, one thing to add and one thing to take away. And it just, I started to see success by taking that approach. I was like, oh, I can be consistent with this. And then before, not before, I don't know, it was maybe like 6 weeks later, I'm like, wow, like I don't really miss soda, like, as I feel so much better, or, my head is so much clearer. And so I want to do more of this. And so it just really reinforces those behaviors.
Phenomenal. Oh, so good. So talk to me about this concept of self-leadership because when we
Yep.
when we think of leadership, we're often thinking about leading others.
Yep.
But and yes, that is true, but also it's leading ourselves. So give me your take on what self-leadership is and what it looks like.
Yeah, of course. And so, my one sentence, when someone asks me that question, it's, really being intentional. Like if I had to, sum up self-leadership in one word, it really stems from intentionality. And it's the intentional process of, managing your behaviors, your emotions, so that you can accomplish your goals. And the only way that you're able to do that is if you're investing in yourself, you're tapping into your mind, your heart, your body, and you're listening to that. You're not ignoring those different signals. And for many of us, we feel the need that we need to achieve. We feel the need that we need to make others happy. And so we often ignore what it is that we need because we think that in order to be successful, it means that we need to sacrifice our own well-being for the happiness of other people. And the irony of that is when you do that, you actually not only are harming yourself, but other people in the process because you're modeling behavior to them that shows that they need to be always on. They can't ask for help. They need to take on more than they can chew. And so then that's what perpetuates a lot of the hustle culture that we experience. And so when I think about self-leadership, it's truly how can I show up for myself so that I can show up for other people? Because that's what's going to enable me to live the best version of my life where I can deliver the greatest impact to the community.
Amazing. And I have a follow-up question to that, which is how do we start to break the habit that self-leadership is selfish?
Oh, I love that question.
Because that is what we have been trained to believe.
Absolutely. And I mean, and we get it, right? Because anytime someone tries to do something for themselves, it's like, oh, well, shouldn't you be out there doing the things for, your team, or if you're a parent, shouldn't you be with your kids? And when we think about our capacity as human beings, we have our resources are finite, our energy is finite. And so we really need to care for ourselves though, so that we can give the best to other people. And so when people say, oh, well, shouldn't you, be out there, keep grinding, keep getting the work done? It's like, well, do you want like my best, or are you okay with just enough? Because if someone is okay with just enough, then you have no business being around them. And so how can, you take a step back and make sure that you're caring for yourself so that your effort, your contribution, it's representative of what you're capable of. And it's easier said than done. I have certainly struggled with this, but when I think about the impact that I want to deliver in this world and the people that I've worked with, it's come down to I know that for me to accomplish the goals that I have for myself and for me to help other people, I need to do XYZ thing. And that doesn't happen by somebody else doing it. It starts with me. And so really it's prioritizing what's most important to you, getting clear on your values and letting that be the compass and not the external noise that you hear from other people, because people will be a little upset when you start saying no and saying, oh yeah, I'm not going to attend that meeting. But what you're going to find is more freedom and more results, because at the end of the day, you're not rewarded by your effort. You're rewarded by your results. And so making sure that you have the energy to deliver those is what's going to help give you that fulfillment. And also, that energy to say, yes, like I can keep on going because I'm prioritizing myself and what's most important.
Yeah, you have the energy.
Yeah.
You have the stamina, you have the rest, you have the creativity to keep going.
Hmm.
When you're burnt out and drained and you're just unsatisfied because you haven't taken the time to fill that for yourself, I mean, it's hard to do anything, right? It's hard
Yeah.
to be your best when you feel your worst.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can even think about, when you go on a plane and they say, hey, put on your oxygen mask first before, trying to assist other people, because if you don't, you might harm somebody else and yourself. And so it's the same concept when it comes to self-leadership. You need to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help other people, because you can actually be a danger to them if you're not caring for yourself.
Yeah. Something you've mentioned a couple of times that I'd like to dig into if we can is the idea of personal values.
Mm.
So I know that people have heard about that before, or maybe they've heard about a company having values. Tell me a little bit about self values and how do you recommend identifying what those are for yourself?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And so, yeah, if you work at a company or you've built a company, chances are you've thought about what are the values of this company. And just as that is a compass and helps guide the decisions, the culture, the work, we need that for ourselves, because at the end of the day, we're the people that are making the decisions. And so it's so important that we have a clear sense of self and who we are, because who we are is how we lead. It is how we show up in this world. And if we don't have a clear understanding of that, if we can't articulate it, if we can't operationalize it and know what it looks like into practice, then we're going to struggle in showing up. And so one of the big things that I recommend is asking yourself a few questions. It's reflecting on, when you're not in the room, how do you want other people to describe you? What qualities do you want them to call out? When you think about people that you greatly admire, what qualities do you admire about them? And then the third piece, thinking about, what does it actually feel like? Like, how do I feel when I'm living in my values? Like, what comes to mind? What does my life look like when I'm in alignment? And all those questions will start to get you to a place where you're able to identify what those maybe 3 to 4 values are. And I recommend pausing at those 3 to 5, because if you have a list of 10, then, none of them are really important. And so really, focusing on those 3 to 5. And then something that has helped me identify mine and other people is saying, in the absence of these core values, what does that make you feel internally? So for me, one of my core values is empathy. And when I don't see empathy being modeled, I feel it in my heart and my gut. I feel sick to my stomach when I see somebody not modeling that behavior. And so for me, when I asked myself that question, it made it very clear, okay, if I don't have that, if I'm not showing up in that way, I'm going to feel very misaligned, and that's going to impact how I show up. And so that is something core and central to who I am. That is a core value. And so thinking about when you see different behaviors modeled, like how that shows up for you or how that makes you feel, that can help you really align on what those core values are. And if you're struggling, I love Brené Brown's Dare to Lead list of core values, and James Clear from Atomic Habits, he also has a value list. And using that as inspiration to really come up with those 3 to 5, because once you have those identified, it's then getting clear on, what does this now look like? So sticking with like the empathy example, if we're at the table with family and, let's say politics comes up and you have different views, because I'm sure many people have had that happen this past holiday season, instead of getting that, visceral reaction and, telling them they're wrong, pausing, taking a breath and getting curious, asking questions, and really trying to seek to understand and really have empathy for what their experience have been and why they think that they think. You don't have to agree, but I'm at least coming from a place of empathy. And so when I act in that way, I feel like I'm living my values. And so when you get clear on those examples, when those opportunities or situations happen, you can actually lean into those and feel much more at peace and in alignment, knowing that you showed up in the way that you wanted to.
Is the Gutsy Collective the right place for you? Well, let's see how many of these you check off. This is a community for women that know they're meant for more, but feel stuck, unclear, or maybe even a little overwhelmed. They're on the edge of a major life shift, whether in their personal life, career, business, or relationship. They crave guidance, accountability, and a community that truly, authentically believes in them. And it's a group of women that have spent years prioritizing others, and they are finally ready to do that for themselves. If you nodded your head along in agreement, then go to lauraora.com and sign up for a free trial of the Gutsy Collective. This is the season where you stop hesitating and overthinking and start making the gutsy moves that change your life. It's such a great way to take your power back in those types of situations too, because when you're in a heated situation or a heightened situation or an uncertain situation, it can be really easy for your energy to stretch into and become that same energy.
Oh yeah.
Whereas if you have your core values identified and you've built a relationship with them, meaning you're practicing using them, you see them, right? Maybe they're up on your wall, maybe you're journaling about them on a regular basis. That's what I mean by building a relationship with them.
I love that.
And you can say like, hey, okay, this is getting a little wild over here. What are one of my tools that I can tap into? How can I neutralize myself? Because we can't control what everyone else thinks and feels, right? But we can control ourselves. So having this relationship with this core value, you can say, what's one of my tools? Empathy. And it like disarms the situation from you at least, right? Instead of you becoming the situation, now you're taking back your own power and saying, I'm going to lead the way that I like to lead, the way that I feel my most authentic self. And then you walk away from that situation feeling so much better about yourself too, instead of like, flipping the table and calling names and, I mean, or whatever anybody else does.
I mean, yeah, okay, we've all been there. But to your point, I love that you use the word tools, because that's what it is. It's a tool to help you show up in a way that you're proud of. And I think one of the worst feelings is when, you have a situation or you experience something and you're like, dang, like I did not show up in how I wanted to, or, I knew I should have spoken up and had the courage to tell that person, hey, actually, that presentation wasn't that good, or, hey, like, how you just spoke to so-and-so, that wasn't okay. But when you lean into that and when you actually speak up, even though it might be uncomfortable in the moment, you feel so much better afterwards, because you're like, yes, like I did, and I spoke up in a way that is in alignment with who I am and who I'm becoming, because we're all trying to evolve and grow into a better version of ourselves. And having our values really helps us get to that next version of ourselves, because we're living in a way that, again, not only is in alignment with our values, but who we also want to become. So I think having an aspirational aspect in that is also important too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're using the word alignment. I'm a big fan of that word as well. And it's a great, like, tangible way to say, oh, here is how to live in alignment, is by identifying what is alignment in the first place. And that is, in this situation, core values, right? Understanding what's important to you. How do you want to treat yourself? How do you want to treat others? What's important to you? What are you aspiring to be? If I have that stuff identified, now I know if I'm living in or out of alignment. If you didn't know that empathy was a core value, and in one conversation your heart is wide open, in another conversation you're closed off, but you don't know that empathy is important to you, you're feeling that kind of stretch and that pull. You're probably overthinking things after you leave the conversation. You're worrying about stuff, right? it gets kind of mucky. But knowing
Yeah,
that, hey, empathy is important to me, I know that if my heart is closing off, that's a signal, right?
that is the
That's a
signal. Yeah.
blinking red light that says, hey, I need your attention right now because we're not living in alignment with ourselves. Something else is going on.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that when we do that, we start to feel more fulfilled because the stars are aligning. We're finding that how we're showing up is truly the way that we want to be living. And that's what we all want. We all want to live a fulfilling life. And it's hard for us to get there without having that awareness of who we are and what we value.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about breaking some of these habits because a lot of it, we can identify our values, which is fantastic, but that doesn't mean that our whole ecosystem is 100% on board with those things yet. Because a lot
Yep.
of the things that we do and say and the way that we treat ourselves and others are habits, learned
Yep.
behaviors. And so I'm just thinking, especially from a leadership perspective, like
Hmm.
hustle culture, working all hours of the day and night, right? Like staying up late, always having your email on. I tell you what, one of the things that drives me absolutely insane is when people are like, I'm going on vacation, but I'll have my laptop with me. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? No. Why are we doing this? First of all, why is your company supporting this? Second of all, why are you allowing this? That's a whole
Yep.
side conversation. But, it's a habit, right? Always being on,
Yep.
always doing the thing. How do we start to break some of these habits that are what we're finding is out of alignment with who we are and what we actually want?
Well, I mean, the first piece we just talked about, it's knowing what those values are. And so without having that defined, it can be a little bit challenging to start to break those habits because you're not really sure when you're going, through those situations, like why it's feeling wrong for you. But if you're able to name it, it gives you much more power over it. And then you can start putting a path forward. So the values piece is definitely one. I think the other piece and something that has worked for a lot of people I've supported is it comes down to, like what's bigger, the dreams that you have for yourself or, the excuses that you're making. Because to say, oh, well, my team needs me, like, is that an excuse? Is that something you're saying because you feel as though if you're not there, that they're not going to get what they need to get done? Like if that's the case and that's true, then that's a different problem. We need to delegate more. We need to make sure that we're empowering our team to own their work and we're being very clear on expectations so that they can step up in those situations and perform because you should be able to leave for a week or 2 weeks and shit shouldn't hit the fan. And so really starting to identify, are the things that you're not pursuing or the habits that you're afraid to break, is it an excuse because you're going to be feeling uncomfortable? Maybe an excuse that you're making is, oh, I can't, you know, I have to get all these emails done. I have to get my to-do list done before I can go to the gym. And before you know it, it's 8 p.m. and you just finished your to-do list and was like, well, I couldn't exercise because I had to get all this done. Like, is that an excuse like that you are making for not going to the gym because going to the gym makes you feel uncomfortable because that is something that's unresolved? And so really starting to look at some of those habits and saying, is that something that I want to break? And if so, then and what is the excuse or the story I'm telling myself of why I can't do that thing? You probably have a much more eloquent way of saying what I just said, but I mean
No.
that
Uh, you are a phenomenal speaker, my friend. You're doing a phenomenal job. No, it make I love the kind of like I I appreciate directness of like what excuse are you making? How
yeah.
is this excuse tied to I don't want to be uncomfortable? I
Yeah.
mean, that's what a lot of things are, right?
Yeah.
Avoiding conversations, avoiding making change,
Mhm.
choosing to stay in old things because they're familiar. It's because we don't want to get uncomfortable. We're creatures of
Yeah.
habit. We want the expected,
Yeah.
but to make change, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable. But the
Yeah.
difference is this uncomfortable is temporary.
Yeah.
Choosing
Yeah.
not to change is a perpetual discomfort. You're
Absolutely.
standing in the same hamster wheel every single day, my friend.
Yeah.
So being really honest and real with yourself about like, hey, what uncomfortable feeling am I trying to avoid right now? Because sometimes, especially with high functioning leaders, being still super uncomfortable. Let's be honest. And if you're listening and you're nodding your head, yes, I'm calling you out right now with so much love. and such a wonderful kick in the ass, because this is your opportunity to say, okay, I don't have to just like sit and stare at the wall all day, right? That's not what I'm suggesting. But we have to start to introduce stillness into our world.
Yeah.
We have to start to make that a familiar feeling so that it doesn't feel so scary and uncertain when we go to do things like sitting on the
Yeah.
beach, or, watching our kids play, or going around in the go-karts, or, whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
Being willing to feel comfortable being still is something that you'll have to build up within yourself.
Oh, I mean, I completely agree. And I think another piece that might be keeping people from, changing or breaking those habits is because of change itself. Like they're afraid of people saying, "Oh, you're changing." I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't realize how big that was for me until I really started, taking a look at my excuses. And one of them was, "Well, I don't want other people to think I've changed." And it was because I didn't want them to think poorly of me, or them to think, "Oh, like she's out there just, trying to run a business. Like, who is she?" Like, it was a lot of imposter syndrome tied up in that. But I was afraid of this concept of someone saying, "Oh, you've changed." And the more that I reflected on that, it was, well, I want to change because I need to be evolving. I need to be up leveling. And so if someone now comes to me and is like, "Oh, you've changed. You're not the same person that you were 5 years ago." Good. Good. I'm glad, and it's nice to meet you, because this is the next version of myself, and it's just getting better. And so I think I had, a perception of changing can be bad because of what it means for other people, but we need to look at what it means for ourselves. And they can think all that they want about your change and your evolution and you wanting to better yourself. That's not for them, that's for you. And so that's something, especially in the past year, that I've really had to lean into and embrace change, and becoming a different version of myself is something to be celebrated. And, if you're in that season too, I get it. I'm with you. And I embrace the new version of you. So I'm sure other people will
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely. And let their discomfort with your change be their discomfort, not yours.
Oh, yeah.
Like they can be uncomfortable if they need to be. Like we can't change or evolve that without diminishing our own thoughts, feelings, and desires. So you can't control what they're going to feel. It's not our responsibility to try.
Yep.
So somebody's going to be uncomfortable. Don't let it be you.
Oh, I love that. It's like there's no excuses. Don't let it be you. Like, I mean,
Yep.
hey, having some real talk.
We're getting right in there. So last thing I'm going to ask is in kind of the lane of change, and that is when I do start making these changes and I do start feeling different to other people.
Yeah.
Maybe I start being seen differently by the leadership in which the
Yeah.
company I work in, or my friend circle, or my spouse. What do you do? What do you do
Yeah.
when you are leveling up? You're holding your boundaries, you're living your values, you're in alignment, right? You're ascending. You're really
Yeah.
starting to like hum at a different tone, but it's not working in your workplace anymore, or they're not respecting your boundaries. What do you do in those types of situations?
And this is where I think having that, sense of self, that sense of worth really comes into play. And by no means does this happen overnight. I mean, this is definitely, for me personally, been something that's been a work in progress, and I'm still really trying to lean into, but recognizing that my worth is not dictated by what other people think and by my external circumstances. So, if someone is saying, "Oh, you're not taking on these projects when you used to, like, you've changed, you're not a team player." It's really saying, "No, like, I know that I know my worth, and I know that for me to perform and to do things that are fulfilling, I need to protect my energy and my space. And by adding that, I'm not going to be able to address my other priorities. So I'm going to have to say no." And just really protecting that and knowing that that's not a sense of your worth and who you are, that's external. So like really, taking those comments and just being like, "Okay, and you know, how about, hey, if you really want me to support this, then something else is going to have to go off my plate so that I can deliver at the quality that you expect." Or saying, you know, I would love that opportunity, but this will have to wait until next quarter or in the back half of this year. And if someone really respects you and they want you to be on it, then they'll make arrangements. And if not, then it's a good opportunity to assess, is this the environment and the place that is for me? And if not, that's okay. Then let's create a new opportunity. Let's look elsewhere. But really, I think it comes to what gives you the power to be able to enforce those boundaries and to, take some of those comments as they come is just having that strong sense of self-worth and knowing that who you are always worthy, and that nothing can change that as long as you have that strong sense of self and belief in who you are and what you're capable of. Because when you have that, like that's when I think you're truly able to get to that next level and you just keep ascending.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything is possible when you're willing to go there.
Yeah.
Right? Your opportunities open up, you feel better, you sleep better, that pesky 30 pounds that you can't seem to get off just starts to kind of melt away, right?
Oh, yeah.
The quality of your relationships go up, your work-life balance increases.
Yep.
Like you said, it's not an overnight, friends, okay? It's not a flip of the switch. It's a journey, but
Yep.
you have all of that available to you. But you have to be willing to make the gutsy moves to get it.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what it boils down to. Whether you're sitting in bed right now because you that's the stage that you're in, or you're starting to do this and you're kind of in the middle, or whether you have fully implemented and the boundaries are being pushed back at you, like, I just want you to remember, like, hey, you have the ability to choose. You get to choose. And I think that you've just shared this so beautifully and simplistically with us today. So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so glad I was able to join you and have this conversation because it was also very rejuvenating for me at the point of life that I'm at right now. So this was just as much for me as it was for you all. So thank you.
A mentor once told me that we teach what we most need to learn.
Oh, and I love that.
And sometimes I'm like, damn it. Damn it. But so incredibly true. Gabrielle, I want to make sure that everyone knows where they can get in touch with you and find out about how you might be able to help them. So tell us where we can find you on the internet.
Of course, on the internet. So yes, you can find me on LinkedIn, Gabrielle Espinosa, and I do have a monthly newsletter. So hey, I won't be in your DMs all the time, just once a month, sharing some wisdom and some stories and practical tips on self-leadership, self-awareness, all the good stuff that we talked about today. And if you ever want to chat, I'm always open for virtual coffee. So if you're interested in connecting, sharing stories, then my inbox is open to you.
Perfect. We'll make sure that we link all that in the show notes. And I'd love to know, what does gutsy mean to you?
Means unapologetically owning who you are and just going for it. Just do it.
Damn straight. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time with us. This has been just a very rich conversation, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
I know that we can all empathize and relate to Gabrielle's story about burnout, those moments when you're just laying in your bed or you're curled up on the couch and it just feels like nothing is moving. Getting out of a funk, leading yourself, making changes, it requires work. And it's not easy work, and it's especially not easy when you're doing it alone. And remember, just because you can do it alone doesn't mean that you have to. It's one of the many reasons that I built the Gutsy Collective, to make those messy steps together. Something I sometimes hear is that, like, hey, I have to get my shit together before I join. And it's like, no, my friend, that's part of the entire purpose of this space. Come in with your mess. Come in with your uncertainty. Come in with your, I don't know what to do next. Because this is the space where you get to figure it out. And the difference this time is you are surrounded by women that believe in you, that encourage you. You have the tools and the resources. You get to actually learn how to make these changes. This isn't just one of those rah-rah motivational spaces, okay? This is the space where women come to get it done, to make the change, to do the thing that they've always thought about, but they always tend to talk themselves out of. In here, you get to be instead of pretending. You get to do instead of wondering. And you get to have instead of wishing. The first 14 days are on me. Go to lauraora.com and sign up to join the Gutsy Collective today. And if you have questions, connect with me. I'm on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. You can find me using @thatlauraora. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.